We often hear feedback from training participants and people who come to our programs, and I think one of the most interesting more recently was somebody who reached out and said, I keep contacting my CSAs via email, letter, and I really want to make sure they understand their responsibilities. And this person was particularly interested about reaching RAs, about reaching students, and how can I engage them beyond death by PowerPoint. And so we're really excited to revisit this as an organization and talk about what the obligations are of campus security authorities, what resources are out there, and what challenges exist.
Well, I think training CSAs is so important because the role of campus security authorities is so important. So we know that oftentimes those are the first responders. More often than not, a student is going to go to someone that they know and trust even before they might go to campus safety or security. And so it's really important that the individuals who must report under federal law also are given the tools to know what they need to report, how to pass the information along, and how to appropriately respond to a victim, to a survivor, or any student that would come forward and share that information with them.
And to go along with what Abby said, we want to make sure that they have the resources, that they know what to provide to students who are reporting, that they know what rights are available, what options are available specific to their own campuses. One of the number one challenges we hear specific to training campus security authorities is how do we know who they are, right? How do we identify them, and how do we explain to them what their obligations are?
And I think what's really interesting too is that we've seen a lot of people really look at how do we make sure that we're involving more of our campus community in identifying who those CSAs are. So in order to kind of approach that challenge or address that challenge, they've really been looking at who do we talk to within campus departments to really figure out who does have responsibility for student and campus activities. And when that does occur, when we do identify those individuals, how do we make sure that we have multi-layers of training? So whether that's online, whether that's in person, how do we make sure that they have the information that they need?
And we need to get their buy-in. So we need to understand, we need to get the buy-in of coaches. We need to get the buy-in of students who are acting as resident assistants. It's very easy to get public safety or campus police on board, but for those folks who are campus security authorities who most likely do not know that they are, how do we tell them that they are and then get their buy-in on what those obligations are and what the importance of that role is?
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, it's really just knowing what the process is and what that looks like for their campus, because a lot of times they might get this information, but they don't recognize that they need to pass it along, or they don't know what channels to use. So many institutions have implemented things like reporting forms or different structures that they use to share that information. So for a lot of campus security authorities, it's knowing when this report comes to me, this is who I need to share the information with, and this is the process for doing that.
One of the most important things you want to do when you're doing any kind of training is evaluate that training to make sure that the audience is leaving knowing more than what they came in with, and then also making sure it's effective. And so something we've commonly heard from folks who are training campus security authorities is that they're training them on the law and it becomes very legalistic. So how can you make it user-friendly to the people you're trying to reach? So can we tell a story in our training? Can we use case studies? And these are some really to hear real voices, to hear challenges that people are having in roles as administrators, as students. That's helpful. Those are tools that we know from the feedback we've gathered from our training. Too much legal information. We want to know what it means in practice.
And essentially, you want them to be able to walk out of the session knowing, well, when these crimes are reported, this is where the information goes. So when we think about kind of gathering effectiveness, it's how do we ask questions that really speak to whether or not the person not only is hearing the information, but knows how to apply it within the day-to-day. A lot of times when we're doing the in-person training, that really comes with doing case studies and walking them through the process of if someone comes and does disclose to you, how do you respond? And I find that to be so incredibly useful because essentially it's preparing them for that role. We don't want to just notify them that they have this responsibility. We want them to feel confident in the way that they'll respond if it does occur within their campus.
At the Cleary Center, we have a number of resources on our website We have National Campus Safety Awareness Month, which is a number of training and technical assistance opportunities that are at no cost thanks to our sponsors. We also have webinars that we've done on training and identifying campus security authorities. There's the Handbook for Campus Crime Reporting through the Department of Education, which is a wonderful tool to put the law in plain language.
Absolutely. And I think as an organization, we always work to try to figure out, well, where are we identifying some gaps and where might we address that? One of the things that we have coming up is a CSA training video that is coming out that really is focused and really was hoping to fit some of the needs that we were just talking about, really creating a tool that campuses can apply to ensure that their campus security authorities know what their obligation is and know how to respond. But I also think that no matter what, it's a matter of looking at your own campus culture, looking at who you're looking to train, their own schedules, the likelihood of getting them into a room, and really figuring out what process works best. So we never say that there's only one process or one approach that works for every campus, because that wouldn't be the case. But what is important is really figuring out, well, what works best for our campus and what tools do we already have, and where are there maybe existing resources that we might bring to add to that. So we've seen a number of different institutions, as I mentioned, do a couple of different layers of training. So they might have in-person training, they might have online training, they might have questionnaires or things that they send out periodically throughout the year, because one of the points with campus security authorities that's so critical is that it's not just a once and done, once a year reporting. It's an ongoing responsibility, particularly because the institution has ongoing obligations to make sure that they're sharing information with their campus community. So in as many ways as they can train, but then also revisit with campus security authorities to make sure that they understand their role and are applying it, is going to be really, really important.
And we're excited about this video because it was practitioner informed. So we heard from practitioners on the ground, from folks training campus security authorities, from campus security authorities themselves, saying, we need to reach people, we need to tell the story. And so we took that, we listened, and we're trying to tell the story without simply the legal language. We actually want people to understand their role as a campus security authority. And we tell the story from Connie Cleary herself, our founder in the video, to our staff, as well as some of our collaborative members, students, who really talk about how they identify what that role is. So hopefully what this does is provide a starting point for you to train CSAs, where you can create materials or customized materials that will complement the video that we're providing.
And I think students really put it best, because when students were asked, well, what's a campus security authority, what role do they play, they presented it as, it's somebody who helps us. They help students when there's a problem. And that's the goal of CSAs, is to make sure that there are people within the campus community that can respond if and when something like this does occur, that they know that there's support out there and people who are willing to help them. And because we know that that report can come in through any door, any avenue, we want to be prepared to respond.